In 1991, a group of civilian divers stumbled upon something that didn't make sense: a submarine resting silently on the ocean floor in a place where no submarine was ever supposed to be. This wasn't a case of mistaken coordinates or an unidentified wreck from some forgotten Cold War exercise. What they had found was deeply wrong, something that challenged the official historical narrative and opened a mystery buried in time. Over the next several years, what they uncovered would not only rewrite decades of wartime history, but raise chilling new questions about what really happened in the final, desperate months of World War II, because when they finally gained access to the vessel and explored its corroded, pitch-black interior, what salvage divers found inside the sunken Nazi Germany submarine would leave them and the world absolutely speechless. This is the true story of U-869, a mystery that begins at the bottom of the sea and stretches across generations. The saga of U-869 is a haunting one, born out of the deadly chess match that played out in the Atlantic during World War II. In those years, the ocean was a graveyard, cold, dark, and full of secrets. Death could come at any moment and without warning. German U-boats prowled the waves like silent predators, their captains trained in the deadly art of ambush and evasion. They were Hitler's terror from below, unleashing torpedoes with surgical precision and leaving behind a trail of twisted metal, oil slicks, and shattered supply lines. These submarines were more than military machines. They were weapons of psychological warfare, instilling fear in every convoy that dared to cross the Atlantic. Hundreds of U-boats were launched by Nazi Germany. Most were eventually sunk or captured, but a few simply vanished, lost in the fog of war, presumed destroyed with little more than guesswork to support the claim. One of those ghosts was U-869, launched in 1943. U-869 was a Type IX SIP-40 U-boat, one of the largest long-range submarines ever built by the German Kriegsmarine. Measuring nearly 250 feet long and fitted with 6 torpedo tubes, it was designed for deep penetration missions into enemy waters. Its job wasn't simply to patrol or to scare, it was to strike hard, deep behind Allied lines. Under the command of Captain Helmut Neuerberg, a seasoned naval officer, U-869 set out in late 1944 on its first and only combat patrol. According to wartime records, it was headed to the waters near Gibraltar, a strategically vital point where Allied shipping traffic bottlenecked into the Mediterranean. The mission was clear: disrupt, destroy, disappear, but by late 1944, the German command structure was in chaos. Communication breakdowns, confusing orders, and a collapsing chain of authority plagued every branch of the military. It's now believed that U-869's mission may have changed while it was already at sea, though no definitive record of that change survives. On February 11, 1945, a U.S. Navy destroyer and a Coast Guard cutter engaged and destroyed an unidentified submarine near Gibraltar. Wartime intelligence quickly concluded that it must have been U-869. There were no survivors, no distress signals, and no physical remains. The Allies closed the file. U-869 was listed as sunk off the coast of Gibraltar, along with all 56 crew members. For decades, no one questioned this, but the records never quite lined up. No sonar images or photographic evidence of the U-boat wreck near Gibraltar ever surfaced. German documentation from that period was fragmented and vague, with no precise report of U-869's last known position. By the time of its disappearance, Germany's ability to track its own vessels had all but collapsed. Even the boat's last radio transmission came from a location in the North Atlantic, thousands of miles from where it was supposedly sunk. After that, nothing, silence, as if the sea had swallowed the vessel whole. Then, in the summer of 1991, wreck divers exploring the waters roughly 60 miles off Point Pleasant, New Jersey, made a discovery that would unravel everything. Using side-scan sonar, they located a torpedo-shaped object on the seafloor at a depth of 230 feet. The conditions were punishing: strong currents, freezing temperatures, and nearly zero visibility. But when divers John Chatterton, Richie Kohler, and their team descended, they found something incredible, a submarine. Not just any wreck, but a large steel beast partially buried in sand and wrapped in decades of lost fishing nets. At first, it had no markings, no flags, no plaque, nothing to indicate what it was. The divers, unaware of its identity, gave it a nickname, Yo-Hoo. The team returned again and again, braving the deep with specialized equipment, Triox gas mixtures, and careful decompression routines. On each expedition, they brought back more clues, gauges labeled in German, pipes and equipment with metric measurements, and pieces of dishware marked with the Nazi eagle. But the turning point came when they recovered a butter knife tarnished, but engraved with the name Horenberg. They traced the name to Georg Horenberg, a crewman listed on U-869's roster. It was the first human link. Additional engine parts bore serial numbers that matched those from the Deschamag Advisor shipyard, the very yard that had built U-869. Finally, 6 years after that first dive, the U.S. Navy confirmed what the divers had already proven. The wreck was U-869. This revelation sent shockwaves through the military history community. U-869 had not been sunk near Gibraltar, as claimed for over 50 years, but off the U.S. East Coast 3,000 miles away. The official record was wrong, but the mystery didn't stop there. The question remained, how did it get there, and how did it die? Two main theories emerged. The first suggested that U-869 was destroyed by its own weapon, a deadly malfunction known as a circle runner. Due to gyroscope failures or defective fins, some torpedoes would turn in a wide loop and strike the submarine that launched them. It was a known hazard during the war, and several U-boats were lost this way. Evidence supporting this included internal blast damage in the forward compartments and the absence of any combat logs indicating a successful attack. The second theory claimed the sub had been sunk by U.S. ships specifically, the USS Howard D. Crowe and USS Coiner on February 11, 1945. The same day U-869 was originally believed to have been destroyed near Gibraltar. But the wreck's coordinates didn't match the Navy's logs, and damage to the U-boat didn't fully align with an external depth charge strike. Then came a new layer of mystery. In 2024, divers managed to reach a section of the submarine that had long been sealed off by collapsed steel and thick layers of corrosion. Inside, they found what one diver described as a perfectly preserved time capsule. There were personal lockers, crates, uniforms, and documents. Among the contents, a ceremonial dagger, a pristine swastika flag, English-language propaganda leaflets, and what appeared to be a codebook linked to the Nazi ABV intelligence service. The implication was chilling. U-869 may not have been on a routine patrol. It might have been sent to deploy saboteurs or propaganda inside the U.S. The theory remains unconfirmed, and the most sensitive documents recovered from the compartment were never made public. Even more haunting was the story of Herbert Gosowski. Scheduled to be on U-869, he was removed from the mission due to illness. Another sailor took his place. For decades, Gosowski believed, like everyone else, that the sub had been lost near Gibraltar. But when divers contacted him in the 1990s, showing photographs and artifacts recovered from the New Jersey wreck, he was stunned. He recognized names, faces, and memories buried in time. He helped confirm the crew roster and details only someone close to the mission would know. He passed away in 2005, just before the sealed chamber was accessed, or perhaps he already knew about it and chose not to speak. The wreck of U-869 remains one of the greatest underwater discoveries of the 20th century, not just for the skill of the divers who uncovered it, but for the vast and unsettling questions it raised. Was the submarine the victim of a tragic malfunction? A mistaken Allied attack? Or was it part of a deeper, darker operation that history has yet to uncover? What was it doing off the U.S. coast? Why did it never fire a torpedo? Why did the official records contradict the truth for so long? In the end, the wreck of U-869 is more than just a steel coffin at the bottom of the sea. It is a time capsule of war, secrecy, and silence, a ghost sub whose true story may never fully surface. But one thing is clear: without the relentless efforts of a few obsessed divers, the truth would still be buried beneath decades of sand, steel, and forgotten history.